unless we understand that the enemy is not Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah.
Because if you get Rush Limbaugh on the air, someone else will be swung into position to take his place. Mm-hmm. Get Glenn Beck off the air, someone else will pop up. The enemy is the movement itself, and there's no way to get rid of it other than to get rid of it. And that's the battle. That's the real battle. So, given that that's the battle, given that that's the problem, conservatism is the problem. The Republican Party is the problem. And lots of people are slowly, grudgingly, haltingly, people like Andrew Sullivan, being forced almost at gunpoint to admit that, yes, I can't say the word liberals because I can't admit liberals are right all along. But yes, the problem in this country is conservatives. The problem in this country is the Republican Party. They are the problem. And until we get rid of them, until we sequester them, until we isolate them, until we get them the hell off the stage, all of our other problems will go unsolved because they simply will not permit them to be addressed as long as they have political power. So, who aids and abets them? Who are their allies? Who are their Italian allies in this battle? And their allies are centrists.
Yeah, and that's. I wanted to talk about that because Mark McKinnon had so much candor at the moment that this happened to have to react rather, within an hour or so of the decision coming down. Mm-hmm. And his answer was essentially, centrists and independent voters love a winner. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wow, you just admitted that your no labels thing is total bullshit. That it's weak people who don't want to have a political opinion, who don't want to make waves. They just want to side with the person who wins or the person who appears strong.
Now, you want to remind people who Mark
McKinnon is
and who he was.
Well, who he was. He was in the Bush White House.
Yes, he was. He was an advisor to George W. Bush. And having gotten his ass handed to him, and having been driven out of his party by the forces he helped unleash, he decided the real problem was partisanship on both sides.
Both sides do it.
And so he did what Tom Friedman did, what David Brooks did. He, went through his Rolodex of very rich people and got some moron to fund him.
That moron was the mayor of New York City.
Yes.
Driftglass.
and Michael Bloomberg. To fund his stupid movement because it is, again, the conservatism and centrism lean against each other like two drunks. Mm-hmm. They cannot survive without each other. Because the minute you reach the conclusion that the problem is the right, the problem is the Republican Party, you are immediately faced with a moral decision. You can know, and the only escape from having to choose whether to side with bad people or good people is the utopia of centrism. That is your spider hole. That's your out. That's your back door. Oh, well, if both sides are equally wrong, then I don't have to choose anything. There was a beautiful example of that when Marco Rubio was on This Week. It's hard to believe it was this week because this week has gone on for so long. But Marco Rubio was on Daily Show this week. And what did he say when Jon Stewart pushed him to say, your side is really pushing for some crazy shit here? And his answer time and time and time again was, well, Democrats and Republicans, well, both sides, well, both parties, both sides of the aisle. And finally he just said, our leadership won't let us. Mm-hmm. And that's when I lost it, because I tweeted that, you're a senator, Marco Rubio. If you want to die on the hill of Senate reform, I'm with you. Yeah. But I'm not a senator. You are.
You are.
And you can stand up.
You're one of 100 people, and you can stand up and scream your head off at your colleagues and say, bring this to a vote and make a difference. And you can die on that hill.
If you do a little search on Driftglass, Marco Rubio Rush transcript.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was so, it really, Harlan Ellison.
Everybody take a drink.
Everybody take a drink, although he's not a science fiction writer.
Yeah, we know.
This lovely,
yeah.
Has this lovely idea. He doesn't write for television, doesn't like to write for television, but he loves what it can do for you. He said it's like an Aladdin's lamp. The idea that you wrote this thing and then somebody, boom, made it come true. right before your very eyes. There's something magical and really powerful about that as a writer, that a whole bunch of people got together and made what was just in your imagination real in the real world and filmed it is quite a powerful thing. And watching Marco Rubio, who has obviously been trained within an inch of his life by whoever the fuck does marketing.
Mark McKinnon.
Mark McKinnon.
A Mark McKinnon school. Yeah.
And Frank Luntz. Every single time, Jon Stewart, who is no prize himself sometimes.
No, really. He does that both sides stuff a lot.
He desperately wants both sides to be wrong. And he staged an entire rally around that. He's largely given that up. But he is one of those people who really fanatically wanted something that was empirically untrue to be true, and just is irritated that it's not, and is frustrated because he wants to be able to go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Monday, Wednesday, I'll go after Democrats, Tuesday, Thursday, Republicans. He wants that because that's his audience. He wants both sides. He wants lots of people to watch his show. And unfortunately, the world he actually lives in is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the right wing are the problem. Yeah. And to pretend otherwise makes you look stupid. And your audience knows you're not stupid, so you end up over-dramatizing things that the left does. But Marco Rubio goes on your show.
Yeah.
And he says, but you guys filibustered more in 1 year or whatever, or 2 years than the entire history of the Senate. Well, Democrats and Republicans, John. Well, both sides, John. And, I mean, right there in front of you, it is so clear that the spider hole, the firewall that prevents the righteous judgment of history from crashing down on conservatives' heads and destroying them is centrism. Yeah. Because every time Marco Rubio says, well, maybe my party does bad things, but both sides, John. So, somewhere in centrist heaven, a David Brooks angel gets its wings. Yep. And there's an entire multi-billion-dollar media industry devoted to selling this one lie. And the thing that busts my gut, if you will,
and did,
is that there is an entire industry devoted to unmasking Rush Limbaugh and unmasking Sean Hannity and taking Media Matters and pretty much the entire left-wing blogs and MSNBC are all devoted, except for MSNBC now employs one bint on its midday show, which is another issue entirely. But there's an entire industry of people on the left devoted to unmasking the right, and they scream at each other across this divide. There is no comparable effort devoted to taking on the right's ally, which is centrism. And yet, that's their retreat. That's how they get out of being wiped out.
And being scrutinized, yeah.
They crawl into this fucking spider hole and say, but both sides, but both sides, but both sides. And the only way we're going to win, I'm totally convinced, the only way we're going to win against conservatives is by destroying their capacity to say both sides do it in public, to be laughed at. They
will be laughed at every time they say it. Yep.
And there are 5 or 6 people on the left that I know of who are doing this. I'm one of them.
Yeah, and there are some. There's someone at Gawker that's doing that and calling it a fetish. And it's a media fetish to keep things on an even keel, so there's a horse race for ratings. And also the collaborators like David Gregory who do it on purpose to help the hidey hole.
And you will see people like Rachel Maddow come right up to the edge and say, the media is really irresponsible when it comes to Mitt Romney lying all the time. What she means is the media, like my colleague David Gregory, but she can't say that. Yeah. And so she won't say that. And I understand being constrained by the organization you work for. Believe me, there are any number of organizations I've worked for that I have been doing good work as I worked for them, but other things they were doing I profoundly disagreed with, that I didn't take them on. I didn't attack them because I thought the work I was doing was worth the price I had to pay to walk away from the other shit they were doing, because I couldn't really do anything about it anyway.
Yeah.
So I get when you work for a company, you got to eat some shit if you want to get your good work done. I get that. But the truth of the matter is, Rachel, the truth of the matter is, Lawrence, your colleague David Gregory is the problem. Mm-hmm. And until it comes out of your mouth some night that No, the problem in this country is the reason the right never gets taken to the woodshed is because every time someone tries, David Gregory pops his greasy little head in the middle of the mix and says, well, but Democrats are just as bad. And
invites Newt Gingrich on his show and gives him an uninterrupted 20 minutes to lie and never asks him about anything he said on his show before.
And until he is taken out in public and just verbally beaten like a rented mule, this is just going to keep going on. And we're never going to win because we're fighting in sand. And every time we think we have a foothold, the floor collapses out from underneath us because, both sides, Blue Gal, both sides.
And there's also an industry out there to reinvent the Republican Party every time it fucks up.
Yeah.
So, and the idea that Karl Rove is still on television as a new, different kind of crossroads, different thing that he's doing now, that's not related to the Tea Party at all. Crossroads is not related to the Tea Party. There's something completely different.
I don't fault him for the effort. I really don't. I really don't fault him for the effort to try to weasel out of it.
Yeah.
It's not, he's the criminal.
Yeah. Yeah.
David Gregory's the cop on the beat. And the fact
lets him do it. Yep.
Sees the crime committed in front of him. Every time Newt Gingrich opens his racist pie hole and lobs another bomb into the middle of our political discourse, and David Gregory invites him back on the air, never challenges him, and just lets him have his way. That's David Gregory, the cop on the beat's way of saying, well, yeah, the criminal I see in front of me actually mugging someone may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure somewhere across town there's a liberal doing the same thing, so I'm not going to enforce anything because that would be unfair. Fuck you. Do your fucking job, David Gregory. But again, it doesn't really matter how angry I get or you get, Blue Gal, or anybody gets. David Gregory is part of a club of people who are completely protected from any judgment, no one can touch them. And until centrism becomes a dirty word, he's going to be able to keep doing this bullshit, and Mark Halpern's going to be able to keep doing this bullshit, and the right will always have a place to hide when things go wrong under David Gregory's capacious skirts. Like they used to say about Grandma's nightie, it covers everything. Centrism covers everything. Hippie punching and centrism. Until those two things are taken off the table, we're going to keep losing.